gay marriage. The Supreme Court made its ruling that this is an extension of equal protection. The right exists. You disagree because?
I'm flabbergasted that the court could come to that conclusion. By the way, I've got some history in this. The Iowa Supreme Court came with a similar conclusion back in 2009. We voted 3 of the justices off the state Supreme Court for that reason. But for them to cite the Equal Protection Clause and the Due Process Clause in the 14th Amendment, Chris, that amendment was ratified in 1868. For the Supreme Court to take the position that somehow the people that voted to ratify the Constitution or ratify the 14th Amendment in 1868 were planning that we would somehow come to the realization that they'd written same-sex marriage rights into that. I will say no one who voted to ratify that 14th Amendment gave that a thought, or if they happened to give it a thought, which is very unlikely, they weren't thinking that they were writing language in there that would do such a thing. We had the Dred Scott decision, and the people at the same time in 1860 ratified the 13th Amendment and the 14th Amendment to end slavery and make sure there was equal rights for people, all God's children who had immutable characteristics, not self-proclaimed characteristics, but immutable characteristics. And that's the distinction here.
Well, it's a distinction to you,
look at what's going on here. You cannot compare the two things.
Oh, so of course you can. Yes, of course you can. They're both people. Gay people are people. Well, brown people are people. You're saying that being gay is not an immutable human characteristic, and race is, right? That's what you're saying.
That's correct. That's correct. And once you cross that line, and there are no immutable nothing but immutable characteristics and constitutionally defined protection in the Civil Rights Act of 1964. And that is when you cross that line, you get into hate crimes, you get into self-proclaimed behaviors or inclinations, then that's within the person. They make that claim. It can't be independently verified. And
well, but that's very debatable. You talk to LGBT people, they will say this is as much of their essence as any other part of them. But the bigger question becomes this: how does this hurt you? Saying that all people have an equal right to marry whom they love, how does this hurt you that it's fueling this outrage among conservatives and Christians?
Chris, I have confined my debate to this thing to the Constitution and the rule of law. And I've been through this in the past. I sued Governor Vilsack in Iowa successfully on a separation of powers issue that was very similar to this. We went through this in Iowa. Now we have it at the federal level. I'm one of the authors of the Iowa's Defense of Marriage Act. Here's how it is. The Constitution does not provide a right to marriage. Even though the Supreme Court says it does not. And if the Congress decided to pass such a law that it mirrored what the Supreme Court has, I think, wrongfully ordered last Friday, it'd be found unconstitutional because we don't have the authority in Congress to impose same-sex marriage on all the states and all the people within them. The people in America have a right to due process, too. 5 black-robed judges deciding to transform America's society at their whim is the wrong thing to do, especially when 2 of them were conducting same-sex marriages in their spare time.